One of the problems with sisal or manila rope is that when you cut it up into pieces, the ends start fraying. So we need some techniques that will stop the ends fraying. But before we look at one of those techniques, I need to focus on exactly how the rope is structured. And you can see that you've got these strands that twist around, and then of course if the ends are not secured in some way, they can all fall apart like this. Now for the particular whipping that we're about to learn, we have to know about these three strands because we're going to have to pay attention to them. So, having in mind what they look like there, so there they are all loose and starting to fall apart, what we do is we get our whipping twine and we put a little loop in the end of it like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that loop over the, one of the strands. So I'm, having a little bit of trouble here, but that's okay. I'm going to put it over the strand. There we go. So what we should see, I hope you can see it, is that there's a loop sticking out from one of the strands. It's coming out on either side of this strand here, and its tail is dangling on this side, and then we've got the really long bit of whipping twine dangling on the other side. So that's one of the hard bits to do, is to just put that loop around one of the strands. Now we've got the easy bit. So the easy bit now is to take our long bit of whipping twine, hold our loop and our little leftover tail still, and very tightly wrap our long bit of whipping twine around and around and around and around as tight as you can, and as hard up against each other, all the strands, as you can. So really, really tight, really, really neat. The neater you do this, the better. And if you've got waxed twine, it works really well because the whipping twine will actually kind of stick to itself. This isn't really, really good waxed twine, unfortunately, so it's a little bit trickier. So when that length of whipping is about the same length as the diameter of the rope, you can stop. Make sure you also leave enough bit of rope here to do some tying off in a minute, which is what we're going to do. Now let's go back down to the bottom of our whipping where we left the loop behind. Remember that that loop went on either side of one of the rope strands. And what we need to imagine is, where does that rope strand go? So it's twisting around. I reckon this is the end of it up here. All right, hiding at the top. And so what we do is we take that loop and we put it over the strand at the top. Okay, now that doesn't look very helpful, but what you can do now is grab the tail that you left behind at the bottom. So this bit here is the one that's at the top. You want to grab the bit that's left behind at the bottom, and if you pull that, it will pull really, really tight and give you two lines of whipping twine holding down tight all your whipping part. Then you've got, so that came out of that gap and that gap between some of the strands. So you've got one coming out there, one coming out there, and you've got this bit of tail coming out here. So we need to just take this one up to the top and slot it where it belongs, and basically tie it off with a reef knot with the bit that was at the top. So if I just try and untangle my little bit of mess in there so that there's room for a reef knot to be tied down in the bottom there. There we go. I think it's a bit complicated trying to keep things in camera view and also so that you can see what's doing. So there's the beginning of my reef knot. Now the tighter I can tie that down into the gap, the better. So really, really tight. And so you can see I've got those 1, 2, 3 strands coming up. That was my overhand knot to start the beginning of my reef knot, and now I just need to finish off tying my reef knot down into that gap as well. So, oops, fingers aren't working again. Finish off my reef knot, try and make sure it ends up going down in the same place, which I'm having trouble doing because my rope is a bit of a mess. There we go, that's why it needs a whipping, to stop it being a mess. Dum-de-dum-de-dum. There we go, finish tying that reef knot down into that gap there. And when you've done that, it should be nice and tight in there, and you can trim the ends so that you don't actually see them. And there we go, in there. And there is your lovely Sailmaker's whipping. And this one's a bit stronger than the West Country whipping because everything's tight and it's been secured on top of itself and sort of secured into the strands of the rope because of these little bits of twine going like that. And I think it looks really pretty and cute. I like this one.